Here's a question for
Congressman, I
you.
would
Have you had
respectfully
discussions,
disagree with you.
excuse me, Mr. Secretary, have you had discussions with the president or anyone in the Biden administration about stepping down from your current role?
I have not.
Not a conversation with anyone in the administration?
Congressman, let me be very clear.
Yes or no?
May I answer your
No,
question?
yes or no? Have you had that
Congressman.
conversation with anyone in the administration?
I am very proud of what we have accomplished. I'm very committed
Sir,
to accomplishing
Answer
more.
the question. Have you had a conversation with anyone in the administration about stepping down from your current role?
I have not.
Secretary Mayorkas, in April, you said, quote, "Our message has been clear that the border is in fact not open." According to public data from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, which you yourself oversee, we had 227,000 migrant encounters at the southwest border in September of this year alone, bringing the yearly total to almost 2.4 million, which is the highest number ever recorded. Do you believe that indicates a border that is not open?
Congressman, thanks for your question. Please, it's very important that the American people understand that the individuals whom we encounter who are not expelled under the Public Health Authority of Title 42 are placed in immigration enforcement proceedings and are subject to removal if they do not qualify for the relief that the laws of this country provide them.
Respectfully,
I do not
Mr.
think,
Secretary,
if I may.
No, hang on. I have a limited amount of time and several questions. If you just give me a quick answer, I would really appreciate it.
Sure.
Among those nearly 2.4 million encounters, we had 98 non-U.S. citizens listed on the terrorist watch list who were caught trying to enter the homeland between ports of entry. This is approximately 5 times the number of terrorist encounters from the last 5 years combined. Do you believe this indicates a border that is not open?
What this indicates, Congressman, is the fact that we have extraordinary personnel in the United States Border Patrol risking their lives every day to apprehend individuals at the border. And we
Mr.
work.
Secretary, you're not going to answer the question. In fiscal year 2022, we had an estimated 600,000 gotaways. Do you believe this indicates a border that is not open?
Congressman, I would respectfully posit that I don't think that the 1.4 million people who were either removed or expelled
Mr. Secretary,
from the country would
please.
consider the border open.
I'm going to take back my time. In May, Kansas City law enforcement seized more than 15,000 counterfeit fentanyl pills. This fiscal year alone, CBP has seized enough fentanyl to kill almost 2.9 billion people, over 8 times the entire population of the U.S. Do you believe this indicates a border that is not open?
Congressman, do you realize that the majority of the fentanyl that is sought to be smuggled into the United States comes through the ports of entry, and our interdiction efforts have been more successful than ever before? I should note,
Mr. Secretary, in my home state, excuse me, Mr. Secretary, you've done this all day. When you don't like a question, you filibuster. In my home state of Kansas, the state health department saw a 54% increase in drug overdoses in the first half of 2021, nearly half of which were caused by fentanyl, primarily supplied by the cartels. Nationwide, the CDC reported that over 107,000 Americans died of drug overdoses in 2021, with 66% of those related to synthetic opioids like fentanyl. 300 Americans a day are dying from fentanyl. It's the equivalent of an airliner going down every day. Do you think this indicates a border that is not open?
Congressman, the fight against the scourge of fentanyl and the devastation that it is wreaking is a years-long fight that we in the United States government with our state and local partners have been fighting. Do you realize that the number of overdose deaths from fentanyl has been increasing year over year since at least 2018? Certainly, this is not a new phenomenon.
Mr. Secretary,
it is not a new tragedy.
Mr. Secretary, you clearly don't understand the problem.
I clearly do.
Excuse me, this has nothing to do with politics. This is about kids across the country dying every single day from fentanyl overdoses because people in Washington can't get their act together. This is about an overwhelmed Border Patrol. This is about migrants being victimized by the drug cartels. My concern and the concern of my constituents back home is how can you begin to solve the problem if you don't even acknowledge the depth and breadth of it? Here's a question for you. Have you had discussions, excuse me, Mr. Secretary, have you had discussions with the president or anyone in the Biden administration about stepping down from your current role?
I have not.
Not a conversation with anyone in the administration?
Congressman, let me be very clear.
Yes or no?
May I answer your
question?
No,
yes or no? Have you had that
Congressman,
conversation with anyone in the administration?
I am very proud of what we have accomplished. I'm very committed
Sir,
to accomplishing
Answer
more.
the question. Have you had a conversation with anyone in the administration about stepping down from your current role?
I have not.
I hope, for the sake of the safety of the American people, that that conversation happens very soon. I yield back my time.
Madam
The gentleman yields back. Mr. Secretary, you may respond if you
Madam Acting Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity. Congressman, I look forward to sharing information with you so that you understand the threat that fentanyl poses and how it is smuggled into the country, everything that we are doing to fight the transnational criminal organizations across the federal enterprise with our partners to the South, and to disabuse you of misunderstandings that you have with respect to the fentanyl crisis, because they are grave. And I look forward to not only sharing information with you, but hopefully sharing information with the American public.
Democrats are ready and eager and united to finish this Congress on a very strong note. We are excited for the future with a new and hopefully a little larger majority than we had in the last Congress. This Senate, the longest 50-50 Senate in history, has been extraordinarily productive. Nearly 2 years into the Democratic majority, I want to take a moment to highlight the many, many accomplishments we've secured in this chamber under Democratic leadership. It's the most in recent memory. The American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Plan, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Gun Safety Bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, an omnibus package, and so many others in between. What people failed to see, then see now, it served us very well in the election. While Republicans were tossing firebombs over the wall, engaging in nasty, divisive rhetoric, just spewing forth lies about the election, we Democrats were focused on issues that mattered to people. So of the two big things that happened this year, one, we had a historic legislative session, and two, against all odds, we kept the Senate majority. The two are intrinsically related, and a lot of people forgot that. A lot of people just went for the firebomb of the day that was thrown by the Republicans instead of looking at actually what our candidates were talking about. Getting prescription drug costs lower for the public was one of their top priorities. We did it. We talked about it. We won the election. And that could be repeated on issue after issue. And we're continuing to move forward in the lame duck. We always try to work when we can on a bipartisan basis. Of our major bills, most of them were passed bipartisan. And now we're going to move forward on a bipartisan basis, led by Senators Baldwin and Sinema, on the Respect for Marriage Act. I know passing the Respect for Marriage Act is as personal as it gets for many senators and their staffs, myself included. My daughter and her wife are actually expecting a little baby in February. And so it matters a lot to so many of us to get this done. We're going to hold our first procedural vote on the bill tomorrow. After that, I hope that both sides can work quickly together and move this bill forward onto the President's desk. And I have a plea for the Republicans and advice. If you embrace MAGA, you're going to keep losing. You're going to lose more. The embrace of MAGA in 2018, 2020, and 22 didn't work. We welcome you to work with us on a bipartisan basis to get things done for the American people. We're not going to have to get everything we want. They're not going to get everything they want. We'll stay true to our principles, but we're willing to compromise to get things done. That has been our watchword for 2 years, and we're going to continue it. We hope the Republicans will understand that. They're not going to understand it this week in the middle of all these heated elections for their leadership. But when we come back in January, hopefully after a productive lame duck session, at least a number of the non-MAGA Republicans will do what so many of them did with us now, and some of them are doing with us on the Respect for Marriage Act, and that is work with us in a bipartisan way and get things done. Get things done. What happened last night with Kari Lake, that's proof positive that this MAGA stuff doesn't work. She was a great communicator. she still lost in a purple state. And that's happened repeatedly throughout this election. To follow the ministrations of Rick Scott, the guy who said cut Medicare, the guy who said tax the middle class, would be for the Republicans. So I hope that they, for the good of the country, but also for the good of themselves, because we want a part people we can work with, will understand that. So we're going to keep working, pushing forward, and work for American families. Questions? Yes.
Can I ask you about your deal with Senator Manchin on permitting reform? What do you expect that to be attached to? Do you expect it to be attached right
As you saw, when we tried it last time, there weren't enough Republican votes. I'm working with Senator Manchin to see what we can get done.
Given his
Next.
We hear your takeaways from 2022. It turns out at 24. Do you believe that President Biden is the best Democratic nominee for president?
As I've said, if President Biden decides to run, I will enthusiastically support him.